Hey guys, and we're live here at Newegg Studios. I'm Josh, and this is the stream where we talk to influential industry leaders and big companies in the world of PC building. So I'm really excited to have the guys from Corsair here at the Newegg Studios to talk about some of the cool new products that they brought along today. RGBs, Corsair is known for RGBs, RAM, cases, some really cool things today. We're also going to be giving away some awesome products, so check out unlocked.newegg.com for the contest, and you can enter there and win some of these products. So why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us what you brought to show to our audience.
I am an influential industry person, as you put it.
Yeah, you are.
And I'm George from Corsair. I'm some marketing stooge, and I'm here to talk about all the components that we sell.
I am also a marketing stooge. I'm Chris Stolze. This guy's my boss, so.
I'm head marketing stooge.
Yeah, he is the head of marketing stooges.
So if you guys are watching at home, shout out your questions for the Corsair guys. Just put it on YouTube or Facebook, and then
Type
we will
it, preferably.
type it, shout it at the screen.
Yell it, but we're not going to hear it.
We will not hear it.
Careful with the caps lock.
Caps lock is required.
Sweet. So this system here is pretty awesome, and we're looking at the new Corsair RGB products. Now, Corsair has made a lot of RGB products over the years, kind of famous on Reddit famous. What is up with the new system? There were some new products that were just announced. Why don't we talk about what you guys are showing off?
So the first thing we want to talk about today, we announced yesterday this thing, the Commander Pro. You guys should check that out. Highly recommended. Vanna White here will show it to you. This is a kind of a brain unit, for lack of a better term, for the Corsair Link software. So Corsair Link is really the product we're talking about. It's a software that lets you control all this cool stuff. But this is the brain that does that. So Commander Pro has a fan controller, a lighting controller, thermal sensors, a USB hub, all that stuff in one device. And it just plugs into a single USB 2 port and a SATA port for power. And it can do all that stuff at one time. And then Corsair Link will drive all the capability of modifying that. So Chris built a cool system here, and he can show you some of the cool stuff as we go through it. But yeah, so we can go on to show a little bit of this stuff. Why don't you talk about the system we got, Chris?
All right, so the system's built in a white 570X. So many of you have already seen our Crystal Series 570X launched late last year. So basically, this is a white version. It's going to be exclusive to Newegg. And
Exclusive to Newegg, yes.
Yes,
You heard it there.
so
that
if you
actually
want
matters.
one of these, Newegg.com. But anyways.
That's true. Yeah, no, white is actually one of the really popular colors with cases. Everyone thinks black cases, but for me, this case is actually pretty awesome with the tempered glass. Tempered glass adds a bit of the smoke effect. White, I think, lets the LEDs really pop in here, and it looks really great. It's tempered glass on 4 sides.
Yeah.
There's also, so this is the 570X, there's also the 460X, right?
Yeah, the 460X is a little bit smaller and has a glass on the front and the side, the one side. This one has the top and the rear side glass as well, and is a little bit larger. And
this case obviously has the new RGB LEDs. Why don't we actually, so people that are watching can see some of the profiles, just so they don't think that this is the same RGBs from, God, way back in 2016. This is the new 2017.
Way back in 2016, months and months ago in the past. Yeah, so this is, so Chris will show you kind of the setup here. The cool thing about the RGB setup that we have here, these are the HD 120 and 140 RGB fans that are in this chassis. They have individually addressable RGB LEDs around it, so that each LED can be separately addressed by the software. The lighting strips also have individually addressable RGB LEDs. So that we can run things like profiles. So for those of you guys who have like a K70 RGB keyboard or a K95 Platinum RGB keyboard, those things have basically a display controller that lives in the keyboard, and it treats each separate key like a pixel. And that's when you see all the cool profiles you can download from Corsair.com that does all the kind of back and forth visor modes or whatever other themes and profiles you download. We have that same capability with the internal software now for the individual controllable light strips and the fans here. So Chris is going to show kind of, here's on the software, he's downloaded some of the profiles that are built into the new version of Corsair Link. So you can set up different color profiles and modes. So why don't you talk about what you're actually showing here?
Okay, so I have 3 basic profiles set up here. So right now I have it set to performance. So as far as lighting control goes, with the Commander Pro, you have 2 individually addressable LED channels. So you can have up to 4 RGB LED strips or 6 RGB fans, the HD or SP fans. And yeah, let's go through some of the effects. So I have it right now set to a visor effect. Earlier I had it set to rainbow wave. We could do something kind of like our marquee for a sign. So
I'll
it's
turn the
going to
case a little bit so people at home can see kind of what's going on here.
So yeah, some pretty cool effects. Let me go to...
So again, for addressing individually addressable LEDs, this is kind of the next step, and I don't think everyone kind of appreciates what's happening in the world of LEDs.
So there's been, I mean, it's not the first time in the world you've bought a lighting strip, right? You've seen RGB light strips for years in cases, but most of them are set to, all of the LEDs on that light strip have to be the same color at the same time. Or they'll have a zone where like zone 1 can be this color, but zone 2 can be that color. On ours, they're digital, so every single LED is separately controlled, and that can be done in the software.
So what we're talking about is if you have a Corsair keyboard, like one of these guys, you've seen some really cool profiles in the past. There's a huge community for doing, say, Pac-Man or lightning effects or all sorts of really custom programmable effects that are even tied into software.
Yeah.
You know, versions that tie into games that have effects that allow you to monitor. You can do different things. Obviously, music, you can show various patterns on there. But now we're talking about doing it with the LEDs. And you can see that even on this system right here, we're getting that snake effect going around. What this means, or at least one thing that I'm super excited about, is making a case, doing different effects, high and low, and being able to program eventually. Be interested to know from your perspective if it's available now, when it'll be available, to say, okay, I want these ones that are in the top of my case to be one color, gradient effect down below. Or you could have it rise with the levels of music, or say you could see temperature mapping for your CPU or GPU.
So the temperature mapping we can do right now. So that's the way Corsair Link works as a software is basically, it started off as a thermal monitoring software where we'd monitor the temperatures of your case and let you adjust fan speeds. But we also were able to adjust lighting based on that too. So the great thing about the Corsair Link software is that it lets you kind of control the full interaction of your system. So for example, let's say you said, every temperature that your system reports gets monitored by Corsair Link. Your CPU temperature, your GPU temperature, your hard drive temperature, and the Corsair Commander Pro, the Link Commander Pro, has 4 different temperature sensor ports. So you can actually plug in little thermistors throughout the case to sense what the temperatures are, for example, intake, exhaust, right above your GPU, behind your motherboard tray, because that's where your SSDs are. You can monitor those temps.
And that's actually something important because not all motherboards will let you, they usually go with the motherboard temperature or the CPU temperature.
And who knows where that sensor is on that board, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the sensor is in this location, sometimes it's in that. So you can choose these sensors that come with Commander Pro, you can put wherever you want. And then that'll create a group inside the Corsair Link software where, I don't know if Chris can find a group here with the thermal stuff, but you can literally tie any light or fan to any group that is a temperature zone that's reported.
Yeah, sorry, George.
You go ahead.
Right now it's set to a profile that monitors the CPU package temperature. So right now it's kind of it's like a greenish yellow color. And if I look at the profile, it's set to do green at 25C, yellow at 35C, and red at 45, and again tied to the CPU package. If I look at the CPU package temp, it's at 36, so it's supposed to be yellow. It's yellow. I can tweak that, of course. So if I was like run something like Prime 95 and really crank up the CPU temperature, it'll start going to that red color.
Why don't we actually take a look at the software itself? Get a close up on that on the screen. There we go. So yeah, that's a lot of software, a lot of options. Now there's Corsair Link. There's also another software suite to control the peripherals. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So Corsair Link is for our components. So anything that goes inside of a system, Link is, that's the domain of Corsair Link. As far as peripherals go, that's going to be the Corsair Utility Engine. And I can actually alt-tab to that really quick.
So Chris is pointing out that right now we have a separate software that runs the keyboards and mice and headsets. Anything outside the case is kind of run by the Q software, and everything inside the case is run by Link. Eventually, we're looking at where those two pieces of software will congeal and kind of become one super software that becomes sentient and sends Skynet into full awareness. So,
Well, at least Skynet will be super fancy with RGBs.
It'll be easily identified, that's for sure.
Sweet. So for people who are just joining us on the stream, we are live at Newegg Studios with the guys from Corsair talking about new products, including this new exclusive white 570X case from Corsair, all tempered glass. And on the stream, if you're looking at it, it actually does have tempered glass. You can see some of the reflection, and it is not just an open case, as well as the new individually addressable LED kits. It's different than the previous LEDs. That means you get control all over the fans, all over the strips, similar to some of the styling that you're seeing on motherboards, also the RAM. It gives you a next level of control. I think the big thing that people are going to want to know is you don't have to have it be unicorn explosion all the time.
Yeah. So that's actually one of the things. Like, I see a lot of comments about the RGB kind of exhaustion. Like, people are like, "Oh my God, everything is RGB. I'm so done.
The
I'm
RGB
so
exhaustion.
tired
It's
of RGB."
afflicting our society.
Yeah. They're just like they're frustrated with it, and shaking their fists angrily at press releases and things. But realistically, the benefit of RGB is, in the past, like, okay, you bought a motherboard and the lights on the motherboard were blue, and you bought a video card and the lights on the video card are green, and you bought memory and the lights on the memory are red. Now they can be whatever you want them to be, and you don't have to run them in rainbow mode. Just because they're RGB does not mean they have to be literally RGB all at the same time.
Yeah.
You can just say, hey, this month I'm going a red and black theme, I'm gonna have it all rocked out, and then 2 weeks later you get tired of it and you just kind of want to go green and black or blue and black. You can do that just in software and go change it. You don't have to go buy a new motherboard, a new video card, a new memory. You just change it in software. So when I see people complain about RGB, it's like, okay, I understand why you're frustrated, because in the press release and all the pictures, you see that rainbow chaos thing going on, because that's how we have to explain to people it can do all of these colors.
Exactly, yeah.
But that's not what it has to look like. You can
And a lot of
change it to
people on
whatever you
Reddit,
want.
PC Master Race, the battle stations, they show off their RGB flare because they want to show off that they spent $30 on a fan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the pictures, it's RGB. 10 seconds later, when the picture's taken, they set it to default black profile or whatever, and go home and do that.
Well, one of the coolest effects that you had earlier was a two-tone. Is there a way to switch back to that or show that effect off? Because I think that's really more where this is going. Personally, I would love to have, like on this front fans here, I would love to have the top one mapped sort of a temperature gradient for the CPU and the second one for GPU. I know that's not necessarily doable right now, but I think that could be where it's going, and I'd love to see the community get into profiles like that.
Yeah, and I actually am kind of, one of the nitpicky things I like to do is, in Link, I like to use the lighting as a kind of diagnostic thing, and I can set the lights to change color based on temperature in the case. So if my GPU gets too hot, I can have the lights change to red. And then if I'm in the middle of a game and I got my headset on and I'm just kind of doing whatever, I look over at my PC and I say, oh wow, that section up there is red now. That means that it's been overheating for a little while. After the game's over, I can go back into software and tweak my fan profile so that those fans crank up a little bit higher. And the next time I play the game, it stays at yellow instead of going all the way to red. So I kind of use it as a diagnostic tool, but I've been at Corsair long enough that I remember when we started Link, so I've been kind of nitpicking stuff like that forever. So I like doing that. I can understand totally why some people might not want to, but that's something I like being able to do.
And I think that's going to be where a lot of this is going. Different sort of styles, different sort of themes, that ombre effect. You see a lot of stuff that people are doing with their battle stations where they're shooting out purples and blues behind their desk, and you get this really cool effect. We also do a lot of that here at Newegg. You can check it on lock.newegg.com.
There's a majestic purple and blue backlighting.
Yes,
right
we are all kind of fancy. To have that same effect inside the case. And I think that's where it's going to be going, that more subtle, high-end, adult look. Because a lot of the people that are purchasing these products are spending some coin.
I mean, RGB is not cheap. You can't make an RGB controller and add RGB lights without adding cost, right? So it costs more to do it. That's the true fact of it. That's why there's a K70 that's not RGB still, because if you want to save the money, you can buy the non-RGB one. You don't have to buy RGB, right? But we actually, it's not a surprise to anybody that the RGB version sells way, way more than the regular version.
Yeah.
So
it's fun. I like to map the keys to whatever game I'm playing. Make sure I know where my hands are going. So for people who are joining us, shout out your questions. As you pointed out, don't shout them, type them. Type them on Facebook, YouTube. I'll ask the guys here. We do have a couple questions from the audience. King Christo asks, anyone else want Corsair to make a new version of the 780T? Slightly different topic.
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I wonder what he would do differently. Maybe like put some tempered glass on it or something, kind of curved glass stuff. In a completely unrelated note, next week is Computex.
So that's a big hint. Corsair is not going to release anything new at Computex. That
I'm
never
just saying,
happens.
in a completely unrelated note, next week is Computex.
Yeah,
so I highly recommend you guys tune into the New Egg coverage of Computex. These guys are going to be there.
That's right. We'll be doing video and articles, so of course check out unlocked.newegg.com for our full Computex coverage.
Yeah, you can tune in and see us after a night of drinking together, do videos the next day. So that'll be really entertaining to watch the same video on a different continent after a serious amount of intoxication takes place.
And fingers crossed, tripping into a brand new case and destroying it live on camera.
Yeah, you have to get there before Linus does. He'll destroy it before you get there. Almost guaranteed.
Linus. So another person asks, Corsair RGB fidget spinners in the works?
Of course.
Of course.
I mean, look, the margin of those has got to be staggering. You go to China and buy a bunch of them, put some RGB lights on it, and sell them for $58 or something.
I mean, you say this jokingly, but this
Yes,
is probably going to come from...
We're not going to sell fidget spinners. If you want to buy fidget spinners and put RGB lights on them and put it up on Etsy, go nuts. Do whatever you want.
Or put it up on Reddit as a joke with the Corsair logo on it, and
you put it on Reddit,
win
they'll
the
buy
internet
it.
for a day.
Yeah, keep the internet for a day.
karma is very valuable.
It is. You can
Karma
you can
is-
trade it for food.
Yeah. I believe Glorious George owns like 90% of all Reddit karma.
So speaking of Glorious George, there are some comments about Glorious George. Are you Glorious
I
George?
am not Glorious George.
Okay,
Glorious
so-
George is he's really more myth than man at this point. He's he is a real person, and he works in our office in his little cave.
So you mentioned his cave to me earlier.
Yeah.
Is it a fancy office fit for a king of Reddit?
Office is not a word I would use. It literally was a closet we used to have the printer in, and then they took the printer out of it, and George put a little kind of makeshift photo studio in there and all that stuff. And so it's just full of like, Funko Pop stuff and StarCraft models and things like that, and camera and some lighting. And it's basically like the dank memology department. It's if you want a meme, you have to go into that room and ask for it, and they'll produce a meme for you.
That's where Corsair hides the meme cannon that
It's exactly.
owns
It's
Reddit.
the meme lab.
The meme lab. So for people joining us, ask your questions of the Corsair guys. We are also running a contest where you at home will be able to win sweet Corsair loot from their loot cannon, which they brought along with them for this 570X case, as well as the Commander Pro that comes with three brand new individually addressable Rgb fans. And I believe there's a few more things.
So yeah,
But check it out.
the Rgb fans are out there. You can buy those. So look, to give you an idea what you get in the box with Commander Pro, just so you guys know, Commander Pro comes with the device you guys see here, 4 thermal sensors, with ports for the thermal sensors. It comes with 2 internal USB ports, so you can do a USB hub. It comes with 6 fan ports, and those fan ports can actually control DC or PWM fans, and you can actually turn the fans off, which you can't do in a lot of software. And as well as that, it comes with the 2 lighting channels. So it's basically got the Lighting Node Pro built into it, and then it also has a really world-class fan controller built into it. And that's like, I think it's $69, and it's on Newegg now.
Awesome. Well, check it out. We've got links on unlocked.newegg.com, or you can visit the links that are below the video or to the right of the video if you are watching on Facebook. So, a few more questions. Will there be a Newegg exclusive Corsair Gamer Funko Pop with RGB lights? I think this person's just asking that they want that. So,
I think that's a Corsair employee that asked that question.
well, then
So.
that person wants it.
Yeah, he probably does.
We can make it happen.
At this point, I have no intentions of creating Corsair employee Funko Pops, but anything is possible.
So there's a question about some other RAM that's on the market. So RGB RAM became a big thing.
Yeah.
You guys were one of the first out there. It's a big deal. How do you guys talk about your RAM and position it in the industry with the other RAM in terms of what do you guys bring to the table? Is there going to be Dominator Platinum RGB or just Dominator Platinum without the Platinum part?
So let's go ahead and talk about the first part of your question.
Okay.
So as far as our RAM goes, Vengeance RGB is universally compatible with all of the current desktop platforms. So as of Corsair Link 4.7, you've got Ryzen X370, B320, or B350, A320 support, We've had X99 and Intel Z170 and Z270 support. So it's universally supported by on all those platforms, and I think that's one of our advantages. And now, as far as Dominator Platinum Rgb, that's a neat idea. Can't really talk about that.
We can't
No
talk about
idea.
unannounced products,
Yeah.
but it would make sense in time for there to be something like that, but I can't tell you any kind of timeline or whether it's going to happen or not. It's just, yes,
sure.
I would love to. If I could tell you today, yes, we're going to have it. It's going to be on Newegg tomorrow. Go buy all of it, but I can't tell you that. So.
And it's going to be, I've heard rumors of RGB UV, getting into other
Yeah.
spectrums that humans
We
have yet
feel
to
like,
see.
well, we feel like it's kind of, it's a little bit speciesist to prevent your animals from not seeing the full glory of lighted components. So we were thinking about doing UV and other kind of wavelengths of light that the human eye can't see, but other animals can, so that we can create like a line of pet products. I think it'd be really good. I think we could sell a lot of those.
The Mantis Shrimp Edition.
Exactly. That's a very specific, like.
There's going to be a handful of
Earth,
guys out there that'll be like, I know what you're talking about.
Mantis shrimp.
All right.
It's like a mantis shrimp forum right now that's like, guys, we got to call out.
All right. How about, here's a question from Lorenzo. Ever consider doing a full-size sheath mouse pad with LEDs, not just the LED mouse pad?
A sheath mouse pad?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. Maybe just the upper part of this mouse
Oh,
pad. So we have.
does he mean like the table size, like the extended edition?
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting. Why don't you guys just make a table? Jeez.
If we could only make like a Corsair desk, that would be. I want to do that pretty badly. We have a chair now.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you are
Chris
sitting in
is
the chair.
Yep.
Why don't you do a spin in that sucker? Or are there cables
Yeah.
that you're going to?
See if it's
There
safe.
is a wire, but it's
We're not going to
pocket.
throw the. Yeah. Corsair, there you go.
The Corsair.
Just do a little twirl there.
We legally cannot call it the Corsair because there's about 6 other chairs that are called the Corsair, believe it or not. But we wanted so badly to call it a Corsair. Just
Yeah,
got vetoed.
that is too bad. So what is the actual name of the chair?
The T1 Race.
T1 Race.
Yeah, so the Corsair T1 Race chair, it's bolstered, it's got a bunch of good features, some really cool armrests that are adjustable. It comes with rollerblade wheels, really good bearings and stuff like that. So highly recommend it. You guys should check it out. Newegg also has that chair, I believe, in stock. So
We do. That's why we have it here at the studio. We're currently reviewing it. We put it together. It's got some cool features that I like. I like the armrests. They have a bit of texture to them.
Yeah.
They have sort of rollerblade wheels.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's called
I don't know what it's
Supreme
called.
racing wheels
Yeah,
for ultra fast.
Yeah, exactly.
office
Some
gaming.
marketing nonsense that I probably made up. But no, it's a really good chair actually. It's pretty cool. I highly recommend it.
All right. So we got a request for a new M ATX case.
New micro ATX.
The materials of Air 240 aren't up to what I was thinking something like Bullet BH4. Prefer the form of the Air 240. Do you guys
Okay.
have a lot of requests for case because you guys have made a lot of cases
Yeah.
and you've worked with companies like BMW?
BMW Design Works helped us design some of our chassis, and we've used a bunch of other Astro guys that helped us do stuff like that for the design studios. Depending on kind of what the purpose of it is, we pick a different kind of help. We have internal industrial design as well, but sometimes we have, BMW help us with certain things. So like 780T, which someone asked about earlier, that kind of sleek look with a start-stop button for a power button, that was designed by DesignWorks. They helped us design that case.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so we do have, we have a roadmap of cases that's 2 to 3 years out. So we have new cases in development all the time. I can't give you any more specifics on that. I will say that, if you look at kind of the lifespan of cases and how often they get replaced, our micro ATX and mini ATX lineup is getting a little bit long in the tooth at this point. It's not, it's not incompatible. It's still got USB 3 and all that stuff, and SSD compatibility. But you could see a refresh coming sooner or later, I would imagine.
Okay. Swift wants to know, how come mid-size cases look better and are more detailed than the full-size cases? And I think that's true for pretty much every brand out there.
I don't know that I agree with that. I think it depends.
Maybe the tempered glass, like the model that we're looking at here, usually you'll see new features. My experience, the answer is because those are the ones that sell the most.
Yeah, I think that, there's a meat of the market, right? You're not going to, guys who buy like 900D, these giant super towers, they're not necessarily going to be buying them that in huge quantities, $350 cases don't sell as much as $150 cases. which is not surprising to anybody. But that being said, I think that like our full tower cases like the 750D or 780T or 760T, the 7 series cases, all sell really, really well. We have a lot of volume there. A lot of people like those cases. And they're full of features and details that kind of cascade downwards. Like the way I kind of looked at it was we kind of come up with high-end features that we kind of implement onto our higher price chassis, which are generally larger chassis. And then whatever kind of gets popular, what people like a lot, those trickle down to the mainstream mid-towers and things like that. So if everyone really likes tool-free SSD mounting, but nobody seemed to care about fan controllers, or vice versa, then we just tweak that for a case that, if $129 case, we can't afford to put every feature on, but $199 case, we could put 3 or 4 features on like that. So we kind of look at what gets popular on the flagship stuff, and then those features trickle down to the mainstream cases.
That makes sense. So going back to the LEDs, because that's the main reason we are here, RGBs dominate the Reddits. I want to talk a little bit about what does 16.8 million colors really mean? And I think there's a bit of marketing jargon around this, and I think it's RGBs, 16.8 million, you see these numbers, not all RGBs or LEDs are made the same. And in some certain scenarios, you'll play around in certain cases or other products that are out there, and you'll try to select specific colors. You'll try to get a color like a light blue or a red or whatever it is, and man, you cannot hit it. You got a color dial, but there's no way that you're actually getting that real color. It's going to jump around. So it seems like you're more like you're getting, 20 colors.
Yeah, I think that, from my perspective, it depends a lot on the granularity of that LED, and some of them have, RGB three separate little LEDs that are displayed in different proportions of strength to create that other color. But depending on how the controller for that works, maybe it can't fully turn off one of the colors. It can only weaken it to the point where it's barely visible. And so that means that the tint will be slightly off. If you're trying to get San Jose Sharks teal or something like that, or something very specific, you might be a few shades off.
I want my Celadon and...
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a question on our YouTube channel. Is it a challenge to implement RGB software control for so many RGB products? Does it require us rigorous testing and planning? I imagine they're asking on the part of the user rather than the developers at Corsair. But why don't we do, for the people that are just joining us, a little walkthrough again of the software, really the Commander Pro, but also the distinction between the Commander Pro and the Link software, the Lighting Node Pro software, or the system. There's 2 different systems. They're kind of similar. What is the real differences? And then give us a little walkthrough of the software.
Okay. So basically, as far as the differences between our most recently announced product, the Commander Pro, and the Lighting Node Pro, which was released was it a month or so ago? Yeah. So the Lighting Node Pro is for customers that want just the lighting. So it's a 2-channel RGB LED controller. You can have fans on one channel and then RGB LED strips on the other. The Commander Pro takes that same functionality and then adds a 6-header fan controller on it, and temperature sensors and all sorts of other wonderful things, like a USB hub. That's actually my favorite feature on the Commander Pro. Yeah, so those are the 2 main differences between Commander Pro and the Lighting Node Pro. And then as far as the software goes, what was there in particular?
Well, so when it comes to the new individually addressable fans with the RGBs, do they come bundled with the Commander Pro and the Lighting Node Pro? Or is it just one of the kits, or what are they being sold as right now?
So as far as the current kits are set up, the Lighting Node Pro comes bundled with 4 individually addressable LED strips.
So those are the ones that are in here. We've got...
That is correct.
Front, back, top, and bottom.
Yeah, that's
and that
going to be
runs
the most
for
common
$59 on Newegg right now. You can find the links in the description.
And then the Commander Pro goes more towards the actual fan control, so your cooling. So it comes with Commander Pro, obviously. I believe it comes with 5 extension cables for your 3-pin or 4-pin fans. It comes with 5, it's either 4 or 5 temperature sensors. Okay. It was one of those 2.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right the first time.
And then see, it also comes with 2 of the cables you need to plug in a 6-port lighting hub. For
And
your fans.
Chris's undying respect and love
Yes.
with each unit. Hard bundle.
Hey, you can get maybe able to get a mouse pad thrown in there as well.
Yeah, maybe.
So for the software, actually walk through some of the lighting features again. I'm really curious about some of the ones. We got a close-up on the case right now, and this looks great. Some of the ones that actually change the lights within the fan, so you can see multiple colors in a fan. Because right now they still actually look like the ancient 2016 models that are still available online.
Oh, yeah. So right now it's set up to change the fan LED color to, it's based off of the CPU package, and then the Rgb LED strips, that's tied to the GPU temperature. So the GPU is not really being taxed right now, and it has its own fans, so it's going to keep itself relatively cool, which is why it's like a greenish yellow color. And then I purposely set the fans to spin lower at a lower RPM, and I think some of them they'll be off for a little bit and then kick back up. But that's why it's spiking up to red really quickly and then just dropping down, just so you can kind of see that temperature change. So if I go over to the software, our CPU package is jumping between 38 and going up to like 46, 50C-ish. It's kind of jumping between those 2 different temperatures. So that's how you're seeing the color change. Now, if I wanted to, I could jump into the lighting configuration and have it so that the temperature is only on like 1 fan or 1 Rgb LED strip. So let's see, if I wanted
Let's do that. Let's set the top fan or maybe the back fan for the system temp, CPU temp, and
Okay.
do the front fans for light bright unicorn explosion.
Okay, yeah, we could do that. All right, so unicorn explosion on.
Please tell me that's an actual setting.
You can
We
rename
call
it
it
though.
Rainbow Wave, but
Yeah.
we will
Rainbow
consider
Wave, that's
different
pretty,
names.
that's pretty good.
All right, so 1, 2.
So while he's setting that up, is there a use of getting the Commander Pro when purchasing the Node Pro? Is there a use for having both of them? That's from Thomas on YouTube.
If you already have the Commander Pro, it'll control 2 lighting strips. So it has 2 separate zones. You can have zone 1 and zone 2. If you want to do more than 2 zones of lighting, for example, you want like a top, a front, a back, and a bottom or something like that, then a Lighting Node Pro, which can control 2 extra zones, can work kind of piggyback off the USB port on Commander Pro. So if you only care about like running 2 different lighting zones and you don't need more than 2, then a Commander Pro is fine. You don't need to buy a Lighting Node Pro separately. The lighting strips don't come in the box of the Commander Pro. They're about $15 and they're on Newegg and on Corsair's site. So you can get a couple lighting strips extra. If you do buy a Lighting Node Pro, that Lighting Node Pro is just the lighting. It doesn't have the fan control or the thermal sensing, but it comes with 4 separate lighting strips on its own. So it's kind of if you want a ton of lighting and you don't care about the fan control, then Lighting Node Pro is the way to go. If you want to do all that stuff, buy the Commander Pro, and then you can just use the Lighting Node Pro separately. Or the lighting strip separately. This will actually also control all the Rgb fans we sell. So if you already have like a set of HD 120 RGBs or SP 120 RGBs or something like that, and you want to control them through software instead of through the little button that comes with them, you can just take that little 3-button controller out of your loop and plug that wire into this thing, and then you can control them on one of the lighting channels in software.
It's pretty awesome. So what colors do we have set up now on this case?
All right, so if I remember correctly, we've got the front 2 fans set to the Rainbow Wave setting. The top 2 fans are a green marquee, so it's going to be like a green blinking effect. The rear fan is tied to the CPU package temperature. So right now it should be like a yellow or an orange. Yeah, it's going up to like 46, so it's going to go up pretty high. Fans are going to kick in and knock it back down. You'll see the temperature color change on that.
That's cool.
And then, yeah, that's it for the fans. And then I just set the LED strips to white, just to, I don't know, have something a little different.
I did see a quick question. This dude, Nightwolf, asked if you can set the software to look differently than red and black. The answer is yes.
Yes, you
software
can.
is skinnable.
Let me just do something really quick here then. So what was the color he picked?
I don't know. I
Black,
didn't see.
blue.
Black on blue or black on blue and
Yeah,
white.
so let's do like a blue on black. So yeah, you can change the software. So it's not just red and black all the time. You can change it to whatever color you want, just like our fans or our LED strips.
All right, so for people who are wondering what products we have here, we have the Corsair case. Obviously, this is the 570X in white, which is a Newegg exclusive. So check it out. I'm a big fan of this case. We actually had one at PAX, and we gave it away at PAX with a whole VR bundle. That was epic.
Yeah, that was
guy
a
was
sick giveaway.
so happy. And then
Nice, yeah.
we're like, oh shoot, we didn't take any pictures of it. And that was the only one like in North America.
Yeah, yeah.
needed
PAX
pictures of the white
we were
case.
real short inventory. We kept selling out of this thing. I mean, even now it's sometimes hard to stay in stock. This thing sells really, really well. So
It's, it looks great. And I think the white complements so well with the tempered glass, and especially with LEDs. I love being able to see the components
Yeah.
inside of a case. Like I hate buying nice components and then you don't see them.
one of the nice things about white is that no matter what color your RGB lighting is, it'll reflect it. So if you have a white case and you turn your RGB LEDs to green, now you have a green case. You know, you have a pink case or a yellow case or whatever, because white reflects that color really well. So it's kind of a nice little thing if you want a lot of lighting effects.
For sure. And so for people that are wondering, this is the Aorus motherboard. I believe this is the Gaming 9. It's got an EK block on it.
Yeah.
It's also the Aorus GTX 1080 Ti.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. We also have, obviously, a whole suite of Corsair products. Why don't you walk us through the other products that are inside of this?
Yeah. So as far as the processor goes, it's a i7 7700K, being cooled by a an H110i GTX. HD fans. So we've got HD 140s in the front, the top, and then single HD 120 in the rear exhaust. Let's see. We also have Vengeance Rgb, 32 gigabytes, running at about 3,000 megahertz, and a Force Series MP500. It's our M.2 NVMe SSD.
So
Oh, and,
basically, anything that's not the motherboard, processor, graphics card is
Yeah.
from Corsair.
And a RM1000X just because.
Yeah.
When are you guys getting into making motherboards and CPUs?
Well, we're going to compete with Intel shortly after we dominate the planet in footwear. We're going to have RGB gaming shoes coming out pretty quickly, driving slippers, things like that.
The
LAN
Corsair
party
Zapato
socks that are
series.
antimicrobial bacterial and stuff like that.
For the audience at home that doesn't get sarcasm, for our friends on the internet.
No, we're not going to compete. We have no plans
That's
to
not a
compete
joke.
with Intel on processors. We sell kind of one high-end graphics card, which we co-branded with MSI, the Hydra GFX card, which is a liquid-cooled card. It uses one of our liquid coolers on an MSI-designed card with a Corsair-designed heat shroud and stuff like that. So we worked in conjunction with them. They call it the Seahawk. We call it Hydra GFX. We have a 1080 Ti version of that that's out there. As far as motherboards, we really don't have any intention at this point to get into that. I mean, honestly, right now the motherboard industry is better than it's ever been. There's four different guys that are making awesome motherboards, and it's a really crowded and awesome market. And honestly, I think we could spend a lot of time doing other cool stuff like Corsair One or other things like that will do more for end users.
Yeah, and it's only a half joke because you guys do make so much. So like Corsair One is a mini PC with an MSI motherboard in it, graphics card. It is a little beast.
Yeah, it's the Corsair One. If you guys haven't seen the Corsair One yet, go look it up because that's another thing we can't make enough of right now. People love that thing. So it's a tiny little completely liquid-cooled PC that does everything you need it to do and then some.
RGB hard drives, RGB SSDs.
I would keep my options open on that. I don't believe they're on the way that I can talk about, but it wouldn't surprise me to see, some type of I don't know, SSD with lighting on it at some point one day. I can't. Yeah.
RGB SODIMM RAM for putting
RGB
for your
SODIMMs.
laptop.
Trust
Putting it
us,
in
the
your
lights
laptop.
are on and they're changing.
Well, actually, that could provide like underglow if you just leave the panel.
if you
up.
left the little panel on.
There's certain motherboards out there or laptops out there that have translucent panels underneath that actually
We could
light up.
we could ship replacement translucent panels for popular laptops.
There'd be
you have an
someone out there
XPS
that'd buy it.
13. Here's the replacement window.
for your,
All right.
for your SODIMM RGB RAM.
Exactly.
So there's also some other questions about linking the software with your coolers, as well as the question, hypothetically, would you release more RGB coolers, AIOs? How does the software work and integrate between those as well as the software that is now controlling the RGBs?
So as far as the software currently functions, you can set the cooler LED light to be any color that you want. So right now it's just set to a white, but I can have a custom profile set up where the pump is going to light up like a red or a green. It really just kind of depends on what you want. I can see that changing in the future, but again, I don't really have anything to show right now.
The cool thing, so one of the nice things about Commander Pro is like it has those two little USB ports on it, the USB 2 ports. One of the reasons we did that is that we sell RMI, HXI, AXI power supplies that have Corsair Link USB headers. All the I-series coolers, the H100i, the 110i, the 115i, all of those have USB ports that plug into the motherboard headers. So with the fact that we had fan controllers and lighting controllers and PSUs and coolers that all needed to be plugged into motherboard headers, people were complaining like, hey, I don't have any headers left for the actual USB ports on my case. That, you know, if I actually want to use the USB ports on the top of my case, the USB 2 ones, I can't. So that's why this has the header in. You plug this into a USB 2 header on your motherboard, and then you can plug both a PSU and a cooler into this, and then this can control fans, lighting. It can control your cooler. It can monitor your power supply usage, efficiency, temperature, fan speed, all that stuff. So it really is kind of the you know, Hydra of Corsair here.
And that brings up to me an interesting dynamic that's happening now, which is sort of the competition for who is going to be the de facto software of RGBs in the future. The motherboard guys are saying our software is the direction to go. You guys have your solutions. How do you guys see that playing out? Is there integration? Which controls what? Aura on Asus, Mystic Light on MSI, then your solution. How do they integrate? What does someone who's looking at this say? How can I get this all to work together? And what do you guys think is the actual best solution for where the industry is going?
I mean, Chris can have his opinion. My opinion is, and this is strictly my opinion, I think that Corsair Link has come a really long way from where it used to be. And it's right now, a lot of these guys who've come into this industry have just started a year ago or 6 months ago. And they have, you know, a piece of RGB software that can control their motherboard, or it can control their video card. Sometimes it's two separate pieces of software. One controls the video card, one controls the motherboard. Whereas we've had this for years now, and we have a pretty robust growth pattern. We've had, you know, our growing pains. Software is difficult. It's really hard to get good software that works well. And I think Corsair Link is better than almost anything else in the industry that does this. Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do to improve it and add new features. But right now, compared to what most of the rest of the industry looks like, I feel like Corsair Link does more and it does it easier. And so as a result, like, I know we have worked with, you know, guys like MSI and Gigabyte to get the Corsair Link software to be able to control the lighting on their boards. Because I feel like if you have the Corsair Link software, then you can kind of drive everything from there. Whereas, you know, if you have to download Mystic Light, or if you have to download, I don't know, Aura or whatever else that you have to download, to control the motherboard, and then you have to control the other thing with a different thing, and you have 5 different pieces of software that all control lighting. It makes it kind of convoluted. So, in my mind,
that is the challenge right now. Yeah.
Yeah, in my mind, Corsair Link is the brain that drives everything, and then we're happy to help, you know, Gigabyte or anybody if they want us to let us help control the lighting. We'll tie it into our stuff. So, we already have prototypes kind of working right now. So.
What do you think about like an open standard that everyone gets together and decides, you know what, we're going to have one standard for RGBs?
As long as it's our standard, I'm cool with that. No. From an end user perspective, that's awesome. It's a great idea to have an open standard that, hey, that if you buy anything that says RGB with this standard on it, it will work together. I think that's eventually the industry will get to that point. I think that there will be a point. The problem is that when you try and add features on top of what the standard is, like for example, there's an open standard for Rgb lighting strips.
Yep.
Right? You can go buy Rgb light strips from Lowe's or from Home Depot or from whatever, and just literally plug them into these little 4-pin things, and they'll just change the lighting strip by voltage control or PWM control. They'll go through and change the whole strip. Can go from blue to red to white to whatever, right?
Sure, and they're usually sold for under counter lighting.
Yeah, there's one right back here on this table. And as you can see, all 200 LEDs are the same color, right? Well,
It's plugged into a motherboard and a computer that's behind a thing.
yeah, so if we wanted to have that actually be individually addressable, where every LED was different, we can't use that off-the-shelf thing. That wasn't something that existed that we found easily. So to
Exactly.
make it individually addressable, we had a different profile created. We had a different protocol, created to do that. And so if the rest of the industry follows that protocol to do individually addressable LEDs, that's great. I'm fine with that.
I mean, I think that's going to be where it's going to go. Like we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, I would love to see where you can map the LEDs that are on the bottom, and you can, in a sense, just sort of graph out your entire PC and your fans and your motherboard and your RAM and your graphics card, so that you can then get some of the effects that you get on a keyboard.
Yeah.
So on the Corsair keyboards, you can do things where it's like the volume meters, the Pac-Man effects,
Yeah.
whatever it is, but you'll be able to do a gradient from here all the way up, different colors, have the volume levels rise, do a lot of really creative stuff, in a sense, program the LEDs in your case. And I think to me that gets away from the RGB unicorn madness that is out there that kind of gives lighting effects a bad rap. And also I think is, in a sense, holding sort of the industry back, because Corsair has been so great about having like mature products that look great, because the style and attention to detail to this case is way different than the cases that had skulls and like turbines and like stuff in the past. You know,
I mean,
it
if
has
you want
matured
skulls
big
and
time.
turbines, we have no problem with that. We have a whole guy that's ready to do skulls and turbines all day long.
Is he also in
We
the
can bring
same
that back.
closet as Glorious George?
No, actually, he's about 30 feet the other way. But yeah, no, I agree with you. In general, Corsair, and I've been at Corsair for like 13 years, so our kind of mentality, our company was founded by engineers. Like our sort of three founders of our company were hardcore engineering nerds, right? We started making like cache on a stick modules in the 90s to do memory cache for Intel, and then they almost killed the company because they put the cache on the CPU instead of having it on the motherboard, and so, all these long time things. But from a historical standpoint, we do all these things first to make sure that they actually, they're functional. They have, these liquid coolers have RGB lighting logos on it, but they're also the world's best liquid coolers from a closed loop standpoint. The fans, they have RGB lights in them, but they also have really good static pressure and they work really well on radiators. The things like that. We want to make sure that the function is there first, and then we sprinkle the other stuff on top of that. So RGB isn't like a replacement for performance, or it's not a replacement for the actual functionality. It's more just kind of an augment. It adds on to it.
Sweet. Well, guys, we just got a special delivery of the HD 140 RGBs right here. Now, this is the kit that comes with the controller and 2 fans. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and this is the controller that's it's not the Commander Pro.
Yeah, so basically with those kits, we assumed that we want it to be universal with any chassis.
Yep.
So it's got a 3-button controller that you can do different colors, different.
I'm just gonna unbox this right here.
Yeah, go for
See
it.
what's going on.
Different speeds as far as the effects go, and yeah, it's a robust little controller. And then basically, you can unplug that, and if you upgrade to like a Lighting Node Pro or a Commander Pro, you can just plug into that little 6-port hub there instead of plugging in the button controller, and then you have software control.
That's right. So this has modes, color, speed directly on there, right?
Yeah.
As well as these are all the ports for actually plugging in
The fans, yeah.
the fans in.
So it's important to note that the fans have a separate plug for the lighting versus the speed. So there's one,
Yeah.
each fan, you can see it here when you pull it out,
It'll have 2 leads.
there's 2 leads. One goes to the lighting effect, and the other goes to the speed of the fan for the performance side. Otherwise, the only way you can control the RGB in the fan is to also control its speed. And that's with one connector, you'd have to do both.
And then you see that on other lower priced products. It's one connector lights up, but if it drops below a certain level, then the LEDs turn off.
Or they dim as the fan slows
they
down.
dim, yeah.
So you want your lights to be bright, but you don't want to necessarily have your fan on full speed to get that. You have to have 2 separate connectors.
Now, one of the questions is, and this includes the LED strips, are these able to be used with other systems or plugged into a motherboard? So I'm seeing double 4-pin
No.
headers here. So this isn't like a 12-volt.
No, it's not the standard. If you plug it into a motherboard header, well, first off, they're mechanically incompatible, so it shouldn't fit. But if you somehow manage to brute force it, something very bad would happen.
Explosions.
Total protonic reversal.
A unicorn would appear and
Yeah.
shame you. One thing I also really like about these, and I can't wait to actually install them in one of our systems here, is the sort of the opaque nature of these. This is sort of a new look like your RAM. It's getting away from sort of the individual little LEDs. It's a higher end look, I think, and I kind of think that's where the industry's going. That subtle, softer
Yeah,
look.
so
And
like
these
if you
fans
see
are
in the
really
front,
nice.
in the front of that case right there, the lighting effect, the impeller in those fans is kind of a instead of being standard clear, it's kind of frosted white. It looks
Let's turn this a
when
little
it's
bit.
not on, it looks like a white kind of impeller, but it's actually kind of a milky kind
Yeah.
of consistency. And the reason that texture was picked and that plastic coloring was picked, it was so that it would diffuse the light well when it's in RGB mode. So you could have these kind of multi-light modes, and you get a really kind of nice blended look instead of individually harsh LED points. So I think that we are exploring. We have a lot of RGB stuff on our roadmap, to no one's surprise. Obviously, our roadmap has a ton of RGB stuff on it, but I highly recommend that you guys keep your eyes peeled over the next few weeks, because you're going to see a bunch of cool prototypes at Computex and
Yep.
and products coming out shortly thereafter that expand upon the stuff that people already love buying. So.
Well, I think we should wrap it up here. If there's any more questions online, shout them out right now, and we'll
There were
ask you
two
guys.
questions that
Oh,
I
go
wanted
for
to
it.
address that were completely unrelated, topic unrelated. One guy asked, are we going to have 16 gig modules of Vengeance RGB? The answer is eventually yes, we will have those, but right now we don't have them available. You will see those eventually. I can't give you a date. The other question was, will we ever have a direct replacement for the 800D? The answer is yeah, there was a 900D in 2012 that came out 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's probably the closest to a direct replacement. And then the other comment on it is the 900D came out 5 years ago, so the chances of there being a direct replacement for that pretty soon are pretty good. And on a completely unrelated note, please come to Computex next week and watch Newegg's coverage of it. I think you guys will be very happy.
We will be there with bells on, covering it, and it will be on unlocked.newegg.com, so check it out. And you can also enter the contest to win some of these sweet prizes, like the case, like the fans, like the controller, on unlocked.newegg.com. Links are in the description on Facebook and YouTube. One actual remaining question, Maglev.
Yes.
Maglev Rgb.
Maglev is expensive. RGB is expensive.
So for
but
people that know, the Maglev fans
Yeah.
are a Corsair invention. It's magnetic levitation on the
Yeah.
fan portion.
Yeah, the bearing is, so fan bearings usually they're, the cheapest is kind of a sleeve bearing, which is just literally it's a collar of metal that just sits there and it's lubed with a little bit of oil, and eventually over time the kind of things go off kilter. There's a step up from that is like a rifled bearing, which kind of relubricates more periodically so it lasts longer. Double ball bearing is the next step up. There's other things you'll see kind of like advanced hydraulic bearing or floating dynamic bearing, fluid dynamic bearing rather, sorry, which is a sealed kind of liquid bearing. Those are pretty nice. Magnetic levitation bearings, which are what we use in our ML series. ML means magnetic levitation. Is literally, as the fan is powered on, electromagnets power the fan so the hub is not touching anything. There's literally no contact except for the spindle to keep it from flying off into space. And so that magnetic levitation bearing is really, really quiet. You can get really good performance at really low noise levels. Like I said, it is an expensive bearing design, but we've seen a lot of people that want Maglev fans, a lot of people that want Rgb fans. Some people want both of them. So we've heard that request. We're looking into it. I can't say anything now, but yeah, that's something that we have heard people want.
I mean, I want them. One of the issues, though, is, of course, like you said, pricing.
Yeah.
Like, these are already pretty pricey.
Yeah.
Are these sold individually?
They are sold individually, but I think that because that you need the controllers to run them, it still adds a lot of cost. So that the majority of the cost actually from the RGB LED fans comes from those controllers that you have to control the RGB LEDs, right? And so those devices there have a microcontroller in it, a display controller. So just like I mentioned with the keyboard earlier, where each key is basically a pixel, it has to be controlled by a display controller,
That's right.
a microcontroller. We have to control those RGB fans with a microcontroller that lives inside that little control button box. So that's the expensive part of those fans. So I think you'll see kind of the multi-packs, because very few people are going to buy like a single RGB fan and call it a day. Like they're like, I'm good, I only have one fan in my case, it's going to be RGB, very rarely do you see that. So
Yeah.
usually the 3-pack or the 2-pack is a big seller.
And these are the individually addressable ones. Is there any way, they have a similar name, the HD 140 RGB Is there anything that's calling out that these are the individually addressable
So
ones?
the lower end ones, the non-individually addressable, are called SP RGB. So they're based on the static pressure impeller design we had before. Still really good cooling performance, but there's 4 hub-mounted LEDs in them, and they can be controlled in RGB, but all 4 LEDs have to be controlled at the same color. So they're not individually addressable in the SP RGB.
Yeah.
This one is individually addressable.
And also to answer a quick question I did see in chat, you can control the SP Rgb fans with the Lighting Node Pro or the Commander Pro. Just throwing that out there.
Now, that makes sense because a lot of people have already stepped up with those fans.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could theoretically add, well, you'd have to change out the controller, right? To be able to add one of these fans to a Corsair system that is already using the previous RGB system.
Yeah, so we do sell it as a single fan, but we make sure to tell people like this is to be added on, and if you already own a 3-pack and you want a 4th fan, this is the add-on fan. It's not like you can't just buy one HD 120 RGB and call it a day because you're not going to have any way to control it.
Yep.
And what about the lighting strips, these LED strips? These are a similar fan pin configuration for the 4-pin RGB. And will you guys be selling these by themselves?
The lighting strips are already sold. Yeah, the lighting strips are sold in 2-packs with 2 extension cables as well.
But they are a different, to do individually addressable, they're a different model.
They're the same. So they're the same connector as is on the HD series fans. So that connector plugs into this LED strip here. So you take the connector, you plug the fan into the hub there, and then the hub has a little connector that plugs into this that lets you control all the fans from the lighting channel on Commander Pro.
And I imagine that the strips, though, are different. To be able to do individually addressable LEDs where you can pick the individual LEDs, that's a different strip than the previous strips that are out
Yes,
there.
that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the previous generation of the Lighting Node and the Commander Mini, they use that single color LED strip, and those aren't actually compatible with the new Commander Pro. It uses a different type of LED strip.
So those are not compatible with the new Commander Pro?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. And so for all the questions online for Dominator Platinum Rgb, hold tight. Computex is coming up. Nothing's confirmed. They hear your comments. They will let you know when there's more information available. But it is something that obviously makes sense and would be super cool because the Dominator Platinum is popular, or you get it hot rodded with the new version. Forgotten the name. What is that?
Yeah, so it's the Dominator Platinum Special Edition Torque.
Torque, that's right.
Yeah.
Special edition Torque, yeah.
Yeah, looks cool.
Use the full name.
Nice work.
Awesome. All right, well, let's wrap this up. Thank you, everyone, for watching our stream. This has been awesome to have the guys from Corsair here. Remember to check out unlocked.newegg.com or click one of the links in the description to enter the contest to win these awesome prizes from Corsair, including the new RGB kits. These guys, individually addressable. This is the future, I think, of RGBs and case lighting. And I can't wait to see what the community does to come up with some really awesome profiles, similar profiles like they did with the keyboards and all the other accessories. So again, subscribe to our channels on Facebook, on YouTube, and we will see you guys next time.